Hello, everyone. I'm Alex from BFI Film Academy, and you're about to watch a recording of a BFI Film Academy lab session on the art of directing actors. BFI Film Academy labs are all about helping 60 to 25-year-olds break into the screen industries. These monthly practical sessions are led by industry professionals with a focus of explaining the specifics of working in film and television and developing your skills to become the best screen creatives you can be. The labs are programmed across 3 strands: storytelling, business of film, and career ladder.
Hello, everybody. I am Mary Ellen O'Hara. Bit nervous, but I think that's a good thing. And I'm absolutely delighted to have been asked to give this talk today on the art of directing actors. So a little bit about me. My name is Mary Ellen, and I am a casting director by trade. And I coach actors, and I'm also an intimacy practitioner. Coaching, casting, and intimacy is the name of our business. You've all the details there on screen. There's myself and Natalie Murphy. Ruben will get up nice photographs of ourselves. Now I really see this. On the next slide. Myself and Natalie have come together in the last couple of years, last 2-3 years, to dedicate our time and our services to best practice in the industry. And legacy is very important to us and those that are coming up behind us. I have been in the industry for nearly 29 years, which is insane. I started my life out as a professional actor. I went on to train. And from that, I started my own theatre company, my own production company in my 20s. And it was all about finding the unique story. But what we focus on, let's go on to the next slide there, Ruben. But what we focus on in particular, and it's what I want to speak about today, is that it's that best practice approach. Simply because it is the most rewarding way to work. These are directors or new directors that are coming up, and a lot of your work will be collaboration. It will be sharing space with your actors and with your crew, and hopefully we'll be able to talk through all of that today. So first of all, what we do is coaching. So we run workshops for actors to practice their craft, their art. Or sometimes we would be on set to communicate the director's visions to our performers in a way that makes them feel supported, heard, and all through open and clear communication. Last year was the start of a beautiful new role called cast support, in which I was on several really exciting productions where I was that cast support. I was that middle woman between director and some adult cast, but mostly child cast under the age of 18 to help create a shorthand so they're ready for when they set on screen. Casting, my first love. I have been casting for many years. I've 2 years on my own, 8.5 years with another casting director before that, and about 3 years before that again. And with CCI, Coaching, Casting and Intimacy, we believe in processes. We believe in a structure in which all casting should be done. It's a professional service covering the entire casting process, from the initial meetings and pre-production, sometimes with script development, depending on the project. So we go right through from what the director's vision is, shortlisting, through to auditions, and to a resolution and contract stage. And then intimacy, which is something I've gone back and retrained in the last couple of years, because I felt that in casting and in coaching, with the qualification and with the experience of working in intimacy, it would help with all of my other processes. So the idea of intimacy is identifying the emotional content of a script, script. I would then go about agreeing touch, physical touch. I identify the blocking of the scene, the actual movement in the scene, and then I integrate that, the physical action and the emotional contact, to create safe and seamless intimacy. And I hope you can say through coaching, cast, and intimacy that they're all about process. It's all about structure. Now, I don't know how many of you have been working in film thus far, have had any experience thus far. So I'm going to talk you through a very bare bones of it. Pre-production is where I tend to sit as a casting director and even as a coach. And then production, I would then filter on through. But in pre-production, so much happens. When you guys, as your director, are going through scripts, going through maybe carrying head of departments, fighting the people, fighting the crew, to help you make your film, whether it's on zero budget or the biggest budget going. The things I need as a casting director from a director. I don't know, a casting director, like what we offer quite a bit is through CCI is when it comes to the short film of it, when it comes to a zero budget of it, we are a big believer that we're there to help and support young directors like yourselves, young filmmakers like yourself, into offering a structure that if you cannot afford a casting director, I suppose, that we're able to help you through that. We're able to give you that structure. It's a great way to start, and it's the sort of thing that lasts right through to the end of your career. So things I need: script. I know that sounds very, yeah, makes sense. Sometimes I have to really fight for a script because it really depends what part or how many drafts they're through before maybe I'm hired. So in a script, what I look for mainly is the context in which the characters live, their world, and that journey they go on from the beginning of the film right through to the end, what obstacles they go through. Vision. I would talk to a director quite a lot about their vision, how they see the film, the people, the places, location, what sort of genre is it? And again, sometimes on the script, and again, depending on the draft, it's not always easy to see what that genre is. And in my initial meetings, it's sometimes helping the director draw that out. It's a comedy, is it sci-fi? A great thing for directors, I'm seeing more and more this being used, especially in our up-and-coming directors, or the use of a vision board. Soundscape, what sounds, what music are going to help with the storytelling. Any comparable films, like TV, visuals. There was a horror movie that we were casting about this time last year, and one of what the director had done for us was they had edited a very short film of highlights of basically shadowing moments in other people's films that they wanted to do themselves, which was really, really cool. It was a really good shorthand. What will the show look like? Who are your audience? Once I have all of that information, what tends to happen is that a casting director would break down that script. How many characters are there? And the briefs for those characters. What do we want from those characters? Something as simple as structure, like name, playing age, look. Do they need to drive? Skills needed. Do they need to swim? What sort of things do we need from that actor in order to fulfill that role? Skills needed if it's a leading actor, if it's a supporting actor, and what each of their arcs are. So my initial meetings are always about gathering as much information as possible. And again, if you yourself do not have access to a casting director, and a lot of young directors would resort or would use social media. So with an open call, I would advise, I mean, it's great if you put out your brief, what you're looking for, put out as much information as possible, when it's being shot, what the rules are, open and clear. But if you look up even Equity or Beck2, they have guidelines. You'll find guidelines for all these things online, but they're very simple and they're easy to implement and follow, giving you a director, especially an upcoming director, who's probably doing everything on the film, but it gives you a structure in which you are to follow. Thank you, Ruben. Now, once we have all the information, once I know my characters, once I know the story, we have maybe our shoot script. What I will then do is I will make them into probably I make them into like a brief, a full-on package to send across to agents, maybe put out in an open casting call. So all those things that I need, the character descriptions, the name, the skill set, I then will put them out for submissions. So once I have them, I will go to your agents. I will go to something like Spotlight, where Spotlight is an application, a system that a lot of our professional actors would be members of, and I could put out a brief there and they could self-submit themselves, or agents could self-submit them too. They would go through their books and see who would suit what role, and then it's sent across to me, a casting director. Again, I'm a big believer in the best practice of it. So as much information that we can give out in our initial search, the better. And again, even if you're not using a casting director, for yourselves going forward, be very clear with what you're asking. As much information as possible. What is the role? What is the project? Who's attached to it? Who's producing it, or who's directing it, or the fee, what you are able to pay them. Are you using an agreement, like pact equity agreement? And again, with something like that, with an agreement, you will find, again, the structure of it. It's all there online, pact equity. And again, you could reach out to Equity, give them a call, and they'll be able to talk you through that as well. There's so many places and there's so many resources now compared to when I started out in the industry. So this is amazing. And again, more information you can give, the better. Not only is it better for the actors applying, but I find, because I'm a reflective learner, but what I find is it helps you, the director, and would help me as the casting director, clarify what I'm looking for, because the cleaner and clearer our requests are, then it can be easily followed, I find. So once we have submissions, we have this wonderful thing that happens. I would get all our submissions through, and as a casting director or a director, you will have to go through each submission. Who suits, who's maybe in the area, how far are they away from your set? How do you need your actors to drive to and from set? All these things need to be sorted first. Once I have them all in, there's this wonderful thing called a self-tape. And as I'm not sure whether you're aware, but they have become a firm fixture in our industry pretty much since COVID. I know it doesn't feel like it, but that's over 4 years ago now. And there's pros and cons to self-tapes. One of the things that, yes, a pro for me would be you get to see more people for that role. Your reach is greater. Your pool of actors tends to be greater too. And then also, with that, it is a cheaper way for actors to come on audition as well. I'm based in the north of Ireland, and a lot of our actors have to come back and forth to London quite regular. And when I'm working over in London, I could have people flying from Scotland or traveling across from Wales. So with self-tapes, it really does help that barrier, that financial barrier for actors. So, I have seen absolute magic made on self-tapes. So it is a wonderful tool. But what I find myself saying to producers and directors quite a bit is we need to remember a couple of things. Okay. There's no direction given. There tends not to be direction given because it's just an actor working with their self-tape request in their house on their own. So when I have those submissions through and say there are 10 people I want to tape, I would send out to their agent or them, if they have no representation, all the information, again, all what I had requested for submissions, the fee, the agreement, production, project details. I send that all out again, making sure nothing is missed, again, open and clear. And I would ask them to tape a scene and have it back into us. Now, that's where the director comes in again. The conversation I would have with the director at this point of this stage is, what are you looking for in this character? What do you need them to achieve at this moment? What do you need them to be? We would go through script. I would suggest certain scenes that would be great to tape. Certain things that we get maybe the emotional range of the actor. Maybe we get to see that character go through an obstacle. Whatever the director feels they need to see in that initial tape, I would then get that scene. Now we call them sides, which is a scene. Whatever scene you want them to record. An addition side is another name for scene. I would then send that across, and I always try and ask for a director's note, because remember, there's no direction given. They're working off instinct, and there's plenty of guesswork. Now, since COVID, the expectation of a self-tape has really, really changed. There are TV and film being cast off self-tape, having never maybe met a director or a producer ahead of time. These things are happening because, it's more cost effective and it depends on your budget. But what I would always search for, and I always try and aim to give to each of our actors, is a director's note. What does the director want from this scene? And it helps them navigate that on their own. Now, if you want the actor to just bring you something, that is great. I always ask for 2 takes, bare minimum. One, maybe with your note, and then a second one, maybe for them to kind of be free and play something in it. And it's always lovely to do that because you get to see you get to see the instinct of the actor in that sort of free tape. Thank you very much, Reuben. So in-person editions. Now, it used to be the case, in my experience, that your self-tape would have been your initial reach to an actor. And then you would go straight on to an in-person edition. So it would be your callback, maybe your first one. Now, there has been, thankfully, some changes in the expectation of what is needed and what should be offered to an actor. 48 hours notice. So that's 2 full days. The reason for that is to give the actor as much time as possible with their script. And again, just like yourselves, guys, if you are prepping for a job, and if I'm prepping for a job, the more time I have to do that, the more practice I have, at my craft, the more information I can gather, the more I will be better prepared, which is lovely. Because remember, actors are people too, and they have other jobs sometimes, and they have families and kids and responsibilities and all these other things too. So that 48 hours really does help support them in that navigation. Appropriate scenes. Now, with appropriate scenes, there's certain things like we cannot do an intimate scene. There's certain legislation, there's certain rules to what you can and can do in an audition room. And again, guidelines, Act 2 and equity. It's amazing. You should know these things in by off by heart. You should have them printed and sitting there. Learn your structures. So appropriate scenes. So once I send out a scene, which is your sides, sometimes it's maybe one or two scenes. I would always make sure that we give context to that scene. Also, be aware not to have too long of a scene. I'm working on a theatre project at the minute, and we were going through scenes to send off for audition, and there's a brilliant 12-page scene. You could never ask another person to do that in an audition. They couldn't learn that off by heart. It's a really big ask. So choose something maybe of 2 or 3 pages max, even if it's 2 scenes, and always give content of that scene. What are you expecting? What do you need? And the nature of the audition. Is it going to be in person just with the cast and director? Is it going to be in person with the cast and director, the producer, the showrunner, your mate, whoever is going to be present? Let them know. And the nature, is it a group audition? Is it ensemble audition? What is it you're looking for? Again, as much information as possible. What's expected of them? Is there an accent? Again, do you want them to practice a note? Is there a certain thing that you need them to do in that room? And again, what skills are required? And again, just like Alex did here today, it's always letting somebody know if they're going to be recorded. It's given open and clear communication earlier and the better. So always let them know if they're going to be filmed in the room as well. Thank you so much, Ruben. Now, what tends to happen after we've got through all our self-tapes, you've gone through our in-person edition. Then now you need a cast of 3 or 4, but they need to get on and you need to see chemistry there. They are playing maybe brother and sister, they may be playing mother and daughter, they may be playing partners or work colleagues that have known each other for a long time. The wonderful thing about us human beings is the connection between, and I'm sure these are all wannabe wonderful future directors. It's that story and that breath in between that we're all here in this industry to reach for, that storytelling bit. But again, with a recall, you let exactly the same as before. You give them appropriate notice. You let them know what is being requested of them. And it's usually at this point that I ask for a note, maybe some feedback, because we've already had them in the room at this point, or we've already seen a self-tape at this point. So the amount of people that have been submitted have been whittled down to those that have been asked to self-tape. Then from the self-tape, we're shortlisting again to the recall stage and possibly shortlisting again to the chemistry read. So each time and each stage, you are getting clearer with what you want and who you want in this role, who is going to be your collaborators in telling this story. Now, with a recall, what tends to be, now there tends to be a difference. Now, with a recall, you would find, well, in my experience thus far, an actor will come in, the actor could still be reading with the casting director or the director or an actor who's been hired for that day, or a friend who's really good at reading with actors, whoever that person is, that's who they're recalling with. Now, with a chemistry read, that tends to be 2 or more actors, right? Because you're actually watching the chemistry between them both. So a recall tends to happen before a chemistry read. Now, not every film and not every project will need the full arc of the casting process. I think sometimes we get our casting process seems to be getting shorter and shorter, but I will fight for it to get bigger and bigger again. Because it's through this collaboration and support that a casting director is able to help our directors. And again, it helps them in that art of directing actors, because it's in these moments, in these recalls, in these chemistry reads, where the director really gets to play with the actor. It's usually at this point that a casting director gets to step back and facilitate that space. It's lovely, thank you. Now, a director on set. I've been very lucky in my career so far that I have got to spend so much time on set with so many different directors, all at different stages in their career. And everybody has a different way of working. Okay. So say at this point you're about to walk on set. It's your very first day. Now, say you've seen your self-tapes for the actors that you've chosen. You've gone through that. Then you have gone through your recall. Then you've maybe gone through your chemistry reads. And the project is now cast. Now, it's usually a producer or a casting director that will then get those contracts in place and the financials and all that really higgledy-piggledy stuff at the end to make sure that you have an actor on set and ready. Now, I talk a lot about book ending, okay? Now, when and this has come to this is something I encourage all of our actors to do, is to bookend their day. So it's the acknowledgement of walking onto set. Whether you've been on set or been on set before or not, you are the captain of the ship. So how you treat your actors is going to be monumental to the rest of that crew. Yeah, you're going to be leading by example, and it's really exciting. And our directors that are coming up are telling some really interesting stories in really, really beautiful ways. And I think the relationship with a director and an actor it's increasing and it's developing, and you can see it on the sets that I'm on at the minute, and it's beautiful. So what I would say, before your cast even step on set, I would just introduce myself. Yeah. So it's about connection. It's about manners. It's about being pleasant. You are starting your day. So what I would always say, just before you go on set, how you open your bookend is to go introduce, well, how you doing? How you feeling? It's starting that conversation. It's acknowledging each other. We're about to go and do this. And you head on. It's all about making them feel safe and giving yourself the support you need as well as the director. When it comes to rehearsals and walkthroughs on set, include your cast when you can, because sets move fast, they move quick. So if you're including them on these walkthroughs and the rehearsals, it's giving you a shorthand. They're also prepped before they're starting on. When it comes to technical direction, and I suppose what I mean there is if you had a stunt performer hired to do a scene, or you were doing archery, or there was movement, dance, something like that. If you had intimacy, you would have stunt coordinators there, you would have an intimacy coordinator there, you would have a choreographer there, you would have somebody in there to maybe fulfill that role. Include your actors in that too, include them in the process, because they're going to be nervous. They're going to be wanting to please. And it's remembering that. It's remember everything that I've told you that they've gone through. with no direction for those self-tapes that they've had to do in 2 days. They are in a constant wee wave of self-tapes at the minute. So when you get them in that room, do acknowledge that, give them a minute to breathe on that. Because it's been a while for a lot of actors, especially since COVID. So especially when you get them there on set and you've been through the process of auditioning, recalls, you've been through the process of costume fittings, maybe rehearsals. So you're just constantly checking in, encouraging and support. Costume, hair and makeup, you could be asked to approve that on the set, but more than likely you'll already have been part of that decision making. But again, and I know a lot of actors that when it comes to costume and hair, they like the director to see it first, because there's been a couple of occasions where I've been on set and an actor has walked out in a costume or maybe with a wig. And the director's been like, no, 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 that's not what we're going for here. Now, it doesn't happen that often, but again, clean and clear, open communication earlier on. So yes. Now remember, if you don't see with those technical direction, just to go back on that, if you don't have a budget for an intimacy coordinator, stunt, movement, whatever. Now, I do believe that if you reach out, that there are people in this industry, I'm definitely one of them, that can help consult on the intimacy of it. And I'm sure there are stunt coordinators who would do exactly the same, and choreographers that will help suggest a structure for you in which you're safe. But if you don't have that, if you don't have an IC, it tends to fall to the director. Okay, so it'll be up for you to direct those scenes. So again, bookend them. We're about to go in. Hi, how are you? This is what we're about to do. How do you feel about this? You then would navigate your movement. You would agree touch. You would work out boundaries and consent. Once you have that, you would then give your vision. And again, it's about collaborating in that space. Consent is not a linear thing. Consent is something that moves, just a wee bit like hunger and many, many other things. But it's up to you as a director and to bookend that scene at the end of it. Another really handy thing is for those like dramatic, activating or intimate scenes, not only it will be yourself that's going to have to navigate that, but you're leading by example. Prep ahead of time. Speak to whoever you're speaking to. Here at Coaching, Casting and Intimacy, we are doing so much of that at the minute. We are advising those that are coming up. We are signposting them in the right direction, because you're the new visionaries, I suppose. So hold space confidently, hold space, hold space in an open way, and be there and be very present. Shot lists are a great way to do that, to help with the confidence, and also as a shorthand to actors, a shorthand to crew, as in what you're expecting from the shot list, how you want it to look. It's visuals. It's really, really useful. And you should get used to doing shot lists. They're absolutely amazing. And also, the more practice you have with shot lists, the clearer you will be in communicating. It's just repetition. It's a very handy thing. Now, as I say to my actors, right, you must invest in yourself. It's you must invest in your art, you must invest in your creativity, and that's time. Dedicate time ahead of set, ahead of these meetings, to prepare all angles, all versions of your shot or your story. Think of it inside out, because the more you prep, it's as simple as that. The more you prep ahead of time, the clearer and cleaner and freer you will be. I always call it prep and play. So the prep is always learning the structure of it, whether it is the structure of the script, structure of the story, the structure of a scene within that story, there's so many different structures. Once you know that and you know it inside out, and you have it really well prepped, then you can play. The idea of presence and in the moment, it allows that to happen more freer. Also, have your call sheet handy. Now, a call sheet is amazing, right? A call sheet is a sheet of paper where you're sent out usually the night before a set day. You'll be sent out the schedule, the shooting schedule for the next day, what cast and crew are in that day. There will be contact numbers for some, full names will always be there, but it's really handy to know who you are speaking to and what they do. Again, it's respect. It's becoming, it's knowing who you're working with and knowing somebody's first name and treatment and respect from a director. It goes a very, very long way. Because remember, you've all these people, all cast, all crew, working together in collaboration with yourself to tell your story. Do you know what I mean? To create that story. They're there. They're part of that structure. And very, very handy to have. It'll also tell you like roughly what time they're hoping to shoot different things. They'll tell you where your lunch is. They'll usually tell you maybe where your toilet is, who is maybe the doctor or the medic on set. It will give you all information. But a really, really good director will always know who they're speaking to. So that's a very handy thing. Also a sense of humor and positivity. It's so important. It is vital on those really long shoot days. And I suppose especially for you new visionaries coming up, you're going to be on low budget or short films for those first couple, really kind of cutting your cloth and working out maybe your own process, working out the type of storyteller you want to be. So really, yeah, so prep up. Just be good to yourself and be good to others. And it really hunger, tiredness, lack of coffee, cold, too warm. It's, they can be long days. So remember for yourself to pause, take a breath, and remember we're all fighting the same fight and get to it. Thank you, Ruben. Now, just another thing that you should know before an actor comes to you, right? So, just to recap, we have the self-tape usually, with very little direction, a lot of instinct, all the rest of it, right? So once a casting director has, I suppose, casting director just facilitates the casting process. The actual casting of, I always believe it's the director, it's the team that really come to that. Casting director's there to hold space, to challenge, to have answers, and to facilitate a collaboration, essentially, whether it's between myself, the director, the producer, the actors, we're there to facilitate and to open these chains of communication. So yes, so once an actor has been confirmed and contracted, we no longer are in contact with the agent. That's where cast and director steps back. It now goes to producer. Okay. So it's up to them it's up to your production to contact the actors. Now, that would be like travel, booking in hair and makeup, all these sort of things, making sure you have your costume sizes, have your recent headshot so we can see what you look like now. Send me over a selfie so I can get the most up-to-date, all these things. It's usually productions getting that at the end. Now, what I will say that, and it is hopefully there's change happening in our industry as well. What you tend to find that is happening for the last number of years, that even at an offer stage, an actor, that's usually the first time they see a full script. Even then, that's not always the case. They may never have got it. So what I try to do as a casting professional towards the end of my casting process, what I try to do is make sure they have all that and fight for that, because it depends on NDAs, it depends on the size of the role compared to the script and all these things. But I am a big believer, and I hope you guys are too, or if not, will become big believers in it, that the more information an actor has, just the way the more information a director has, the more information anybody has, and the earlier they have it, the better chance they have of that storytelling. They can only be better at that job. It's the only way. But even a table read, Zoom read, rehearsal, advance of shoot, this is not always the case. It would be brilliant, but again, it's usually down to budgetary. But that glorious thing about you guys starting off with your shorts and making great stories with your friends. I started in the short film scene in NI. I still love doing a short film, but you're working towards a really cool story, a really cool film with no budget. So you don't have maybe a full script at that point, or a table read or a Zoom. But again, you should be aiming for these things. And remember, just when I was talking about the travel, accommodation, and the hair and makeup, second AD on a bigger production, they're the ones that do that reach. So an actor very rarely gets to talk to the director until they come to the first day on set, unless they are a star, unless they are the leads. But again, if there was somebody doing cast support, that's where that middle, those moments could be facilitated by someone from CCI that could then navigate that and make sure they have everything they need. Now, what we've learned here, hopefully you've learned something, is you have to remember that the more information, the better. Open and clear communication. Yes? I'm going to take that as a yes. Thank you, Reuben. So, I'm a big believer in process. I've mentioned that before. I do believe that through a structure, through a guideline, it keeps the art free. It keeps it alive, because we all know the rules of the game. We all know the structure, and that's where we play. And if we're free and safe in those moments, we can create madness. Not madness. We can create magic or magical madness. It depends. So awareness, I think that is the one thing, or the main thing that I would like you guys to take away from today. Just the awareness of what those actors are going through is huge. A lot of time our actors are, especially since COVID and with the uptake, I suppose, in the self-tapes, a lot of their journey is done in isolation until really they get there. I've married an actor, so I'm well aware of those moments in between jobs or auditioning, and that prep is done mostly in isolation. But yes, here we go. So the awareness of the journey that an actor goes through is vital for you guys. Because remember, they're your collaborators. It's through your conversation and your work with them that your story comes to life. Remember, you found a human being, right? And I know that sounds so silly, but I like to remember it's a human person to embody a character, to fulfill your vision. That's what we have found. So what support and information do they need from you or the production to make this happy, to make this happen? Now, people would say sometimes, oh, well, we don't have the budget to do this, or we don't have the budget to do that. And I revert back to open and clear communication. Get it gone first. Do it. Every creative deserves to feel safe and trusted in work. Goes the same for our actors. And as a director, this is something that you can offer in simple, clear, and practical direction. It's the most economic way to work on set. Now, remember, before an actor comes to you, you're almost guaranteed that all the psychological work has been done before they've come on set. So before they've come on set, they've possibly read and hopefully read the full script. They're given the content, they've been given context. They have been through a process with this character too, from self-tape to audition to chemistry read to possibly a rehearsal to being on set. They have been working on this character. That's their job. That's what they have been doing. So at that point, a great thing for you guys to remember is guidance. You want to guide them into performance. So when I coach, when I do cast support on set, the director will give me the note. And then what I then try to do is to guide it through play. It's not necessarily telling them what to do, but it's guidance and support, because you want them to feel confident because of what they're going to be performing. Like they're going to be performing roles. So you need them to be ready for that. So be careful of criticism and be mindful of guiding. No surprises on the day, guys. Prep and play. Have it all prepped out. Know what's going to happen in advance. Give all information when you can. No surprises. And a brilliant thing is keep your work professional as directors, not personal. Now, that's the sort of work I'm doing with our actors in our all artist playgroups, where it is, it's instilling that information and instilling that process of this is a job, this is a professional space. Like as a director, always have a third party present when you're meeting an actor, whether it's a casting director or somebody else. There's no need for a director to be meeting an actor on their own. Do you know what I mean? Create those structures. Make it a professional self. Make yourself a professional self. Dedicate that time to know how you want to work. Yeah? Okay. Ruben. Right. Another great thing. Sorry, I'm just getting my timings in. So learn, read everything. Eat it up. Poetry, literature, theatre, non-verbal storytelling. These are visual directors, right? You want to be film directors. Non-verbal storytelling, mime, images, music, physicality, clown practices. Embrace storytelling in all of its form. Enjoy it. Explore it, especially in your youth. It's the best time to do it. None of this work will ever go unnoticed. It will inform your work and your processes moving forward. read books. Read the books that the actors are reading too. How are the actors trained? You know, like what are they doing? Stanislavski, actioning, Meisner, body listening is a big thing. Your nervous system is, you know, a lot of actors work through their nervous system, you know, engaging that from the get-go, and playing in that space. Again, bookending those movements in performance. Um, Go and see theatre. What theatre is what does theatre make you do? How do you feel with a live performance? What's the difference between live performance and a filmed performance? Explore that. Dedicate the time to investing in your future. You are worth it. Like, that's the thing. All art is needed and all art is worth that. Find your own voice. And, you know, that might sound hard, but originality is dead. You know, leave yourself alone. You do not need to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. What we do now at this point in 2024, we can be inspired by all those other stories that are pulsating in the world. How can you tell it differently? Why is your point of view important? Yeah. The originality and authenticity that you want in your work can be found in response to others. It's not about reinventing something or discovering something new. It's about your point of view. It's about the way in which you tell your story. It's about your voice, your opinion, your dreams. Yeah, and how we instill that. Thank you, Ruben. Now, with that said, do you have a process? Probably not. But you need to develop one. Do it. Why not? Develop that and explore it. How do you like to work? Do you work with shot lists? Do you work in photographs? You know, like how do you see? How do you hear? What kind of storyteller are you? You know, do you use the physical? You know, is it your soundscapes? How do you share space with others? And that's very important. I'm a big believer that it's through a robust relationship with yourself. Once you have that, now we are human beings and it depends on the day. All these things are real. But when you're working on that, when you know this is my personal self, that's my professional self, and you push on through it, that process is going to be beautiful. Like I always say to our actors, the process belongs to the artist. The product belongs to the audience. So as creatives, we should be focusing. That's the only bit we can control. That wee bit that we can control in our careers as a creative. That's what we take on. That's the process that we create. That's the moment we have control over. Outside of that, it's opinion. Yeah. And I think it's really nice to remember that. Learn how to play. Working with actors in the room. Now, I know myself, with CCI, we have all artists play groups. We have different cohorts around the country in which we have artists. So we have actors, singers, dancers, I see chaperones, writers, where we get creatives in a space with several cohorts where we learn to play, where we use games, communication games, we direct, we write. And again, all I'm doing is holding space for the creatives to share and be free and to play, to remember these jobs that we choose in this industry are joyful. We must remember how to play. Do you have access to these spaces where you are? Can you get access to them? Can you create a cohort yourselves? Where, do you know what I mean? Do you have friends that are actors? And, it's finding these spaces and taking the time to work on yourself. Collaboration. What does this mean? Now, it depends on the director. I know directors that are very prescriptive. You know, I know directors where it's all about the visual and it's simply, okay, Mary Ellen, can you, when you're saying that line, can you walk here? Can you look here? And the light's going to be here. Like it's maybe as simple as that. But that director is a very well-known director, and he knows that those actors have already done all the psychological work. So his direction is simply in movement for the screen. So it depends what that is. And remember, many rooms with many different people. The most important relationship ever is going to be with yourself. Yeah. Again, once that's strong and explored and you know the sort of person you are and where you want to be, you're going to meet so many other people with different requirements, different needs, TV, film, theatre, rehearsals, auditions, constant people. And there's always that reach. And for yourself, open and clear communication and taking time to pause, breathe, and come back in a professional self. Thank you, Reuben. I'm really aware that this time is going so quick. Mining text and story, right? I am sure this is something you do as directors. This is a vital part of an actor's process and a casting director's process. So, you know, guaranteed most actors come from almost always a psychological approach. So again, remember, they're information that they tend to be given in the process of casting is limited, right? You know, do they have sides? Whatever scene, whatever sides they're given, they are going to mine it within an inch of their life. They're going to, you know, what is said about that character, what has happened just before this scene, what is happening after this scene, what relationship is my character in context to everybody else, and what complexities are we looking, you know, does that actor need to be funny, you know, does it need to be on the page? So be mindful of that. Their information is limited. So as directors, the most information you can give, the better. Like, what are you asking for in a performance? How naturalistic is it? Is it genre specific? What length the scene is required? Again, 2-3 pages should be max, depending on the content. Like comedy, where is it? Do they need to play against what's on the page? You know, sometimes, you know, I'll be working on something and we've had many, many tapes out. And all of a sudden, a writer and director comes back to you and they're like, oh my God, that's not where I need that to be. They need to fight against that. And you're like, sweet. Would have been handy if we had it earlier. But it's really cool for you as directors to be thinking about that. And remember, the level of work that is required of these actors with very limited resources in 2 days, 48 hours. And again, for you, in order to have a shorthand with these actors, ask them what their approach is. How do they go about character? And what is their process? What have they found in the text? Two-way conversation, starting up the collaboration. Yes, Reuben. Things to think about, guys. They love a note. Actors love a note. They want to be directed. Now, directed is not told what to do, but guided into performance. I think that's a much better term. Again, make sure it's open and clear direction. Do not be vague. And be kind. Be really kind with your direction. Trust. You want to promote and support trust between you and your actors. That's your channel of conversation. It's through it's through that guidance that the actor becomes confident in their performance. And the last thing you want is an actor being unsure while in character, because you want to keep an actor strong professionally and personally. Remember, they're at work, so you don't want them to take any of that lack of confidence in their personal self into that professional. Yeah. So remember, both working towards the same goal. Bring them into your process. Collaborate, learn from the two. Criticism, whether it's unconstructive or constructive, it's just not a healthy way to work. Remember, we are in work. It is a place of work. And do keep in mind, what an actor's path is like. It's really helpful when it comes to empathy when you're in that sense of collaboration. And remember, when you are a director, you are leading from the front. How you treat your cast and crew will influence how everybody else treats them. You're holding space, you're confident, but you're sharing and you're supportive. Thank you, Ruben. Line reads, do it like this. Nobody likes that. It's prescriptive. It's like I was in auditions auditions last Friday, and in the rehearsal in an audition room, it can be slightly different. Again, it was a more physical piece, and the note given by the director was on that line, I really liked the way you smiled. Right? Now, I watched that actor for the next 3 attempts try to smile in the same place, as opposed to, brilliant, I loved what you did there. That's the difference. I really enjoyed what you did there. Could you try? It's, again, practice, language, careful language, caring language, descriptive language. I've also heard, what is happening with your face? Did you not hear my note? Don't. It's a definite no. Remember, they're people, and you're constantly seeking a resolution, not just in a personal sense because you're working with another person, but in a professional sense. Because each scene, there needs to be a resolution of sorts between characters, between you and the actor. So yeah, so specific praise. As in, I really liked when you smiled on that line. Could you do that again? It's a definite no. And the book ending comes back. Never let your actor leave set without a very short debrief at the end of the day. Now, it's not a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It could be a text. It could be a handshake. It could be a hug. It could be one of those things. Thank you very much for your work today. Shake that off at you. We'll see you tomorrow. Because the last thing you want is last thing any of us want is that actor to move forward, holding on to whatever they've gone through in that day, whatever the character's gone through in that day, because it's the nervous system that these actors engage for their performance, and the nervous system does not know that it's not real. So the body feels all these things. So a simple bookend with shake that off. Go, thank you so much for your work today. I will see you tomorrow is so important. So how do we get the best out of our actors? Prep yourself, inform yourself, safeguarding, connection and reach. You want to connect and you want a space between the two of you to reach, whether it's in collaboration or direction. Be kind, be patient, be supportive. We want an actor to have their own autonomy, just the way we want you directors to have your own autonomy. Wellness. We're at work. We don't want people hurt and fragile there. We support them with wellness. We support them. We encourage play. The actors are playful, wonderful, magical beings. Encourage play, encourage that joy. Creative freedom and empowerment. You have all of this to do with your actors. And by simple and clear, open communication from the start and honest and authentic, this will happen naturally. We just have to be aware of the things we need to, we just need to be aware of our awareness, if that makes sense. These are books. These are books that you really should get. An actor prepares Building a Character, Meister in Practice by Nick Mosley, Actions, Physical Actions, Grotowski. The Elemental Actor is gorgeous, Mel Churcher. And Into the Woods is a really, really cool book with John York. Not necessarily an actors only book, but I do it has so many things in for all creatives, both cast and crew, to be working on. And I'm a big believer, when one of us rise, we all rise. So I'm here, and I hope you are. We're all about fostering safety and care in pre-production and on set. Be aware of the actor's journey right to you. Be aware of the ecosystem of the process the actor employs. Ask questions, inform yourself. I'm a big believer that every director should take part in an acting class to arm yourself with that experience and knowledge of what a working actor goes through. Treat people how you wish to be treated, and have a robust relationship with yourself. There's a beautiful intimacy coordinator called Rose Byrne. And she used this term consent aware artist a couple of years ago when I first met her. And for me, that is huge. Both sides of the camera. Consent aware artist. What are your requirements? What do you need? What do you not need? How do we accommodate each other? How do we collaborate in this safe space to create, like, boldly? It's all down to you guys leading from the front, our wonderful directors. Let's see, where are we, Ruben? Oh God, and that's it. Now, guys, there was a lot of chat there. I hope I'm able to answer questions to clear up anything there. I get very passionate, and it's really exciting that you're all doing this tonight. So hopefully we'll get it sorted.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen. We had so many questions. We had 50 questions.
What?
So yeah, let's try to get through as many of them as we can. We also had really nice comments in the chat as well. Everyone is loving Into the Woods. It's their favorite book.
Love it, love it, love it. Read.
Just to tell everyone who's asking in the chat, this is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the BFI YouTube channel by the end of the week. So don't worry about that. Let's start with questions. I have a few questions first on the casting process. So the first question from Sonia Wolf. When casting actors, you want to involve the best available actors in your film,
Yes.
obviously. But what if casting submissions do not convince you? Should you ever go for second best, or should you extend the casting process until you have identified the actors best suited to your film?
Well, yes and no, I suppose, right? It depends on your budget. And it depends. Well, first of all, I don't believe you should ever cast someone that you don't think can do the job. It should always be the best actor for the job, that are free at the time that they need to take that job, because you could find availability. A lot of stuff that I work on, we would have to be waiting for months and rescheduling if you want a certain actor. But again, with the process, get people in the room. Our actors are so talented. See, here in the UK and Ireland, we have extraordinary amount of talent. And if you can't find your actor, reach bigger. Do you know what I mean? What I always do in a casting, I believe you go bigger first. So I would tend to do an open call and a specific call at the same time. So you're making sure that you're getting actors who are represented and actors who are not represented. And there is this, there's this thought that if you don't have an agent, it's only great actors who have an agent. That's not necessarily true. It depends on circumstance. So especially for you guys coming up, get them in the room. Do you know what I mean? Set up a process where you get to play, you get to see what you can get out of people. Do you know what I mean? What their talent is. Always search. We definitely have the talent there. But start big and then become more focused with your process is probably the best way to do that.
Great. And then Alfie Morgan is asking, is there any procedure for finding and auditioning non-actors or alternate performers, such as dancers or musicians and so on?
I tend to use exactly the same process, um, because again, it's the process. So I go, but again, the reach is different. So if I was looking specifically for dancers that were non-actors, I would open call it, and then I would reach out to like dance groups in the area, schools in the area. Depending on the age, it would be maybe reading groups for adults or a library, or do you know what I mean? Again, research where you would find these people. And most casting directors, if you reached out, do you know what I mean? They'll signpost you somewhere that you could find what you need.
Great, thank you. And if you're working on a script with very little dialogue, how would a director approach this for actors with a self-tape?
Right. So with non-verbal, right, you will still have your beats. You will still have your story, even if it's not in dialogue. You will have the backdrop, you'll have your location, you'll have the description of movement, you'll maybe have the details and the emotional beats, the physical beats. And what I would do, and what I tend to do, is write out those physical beats just as if it was a scene or a side, and I would send it across. Sometimes you can ask for, if you needed them to maybe add dialogue to it or remove it, but lay out what you need. And those actors, they are magic. They'll be able to take what you give them and do something really wonderful with it.
Thank you. And still talking about the casting process, what are your thoughts on blind casting as a process?
It again depends on the project. There's times that again, I'm all about inclusivity. We want representation for all, and blind casting has been great for that, and really to kind of start that ball rolling. You know, for me in particular, in say if I'm looking for if I'm casting a project in the north of Ireland, there are certain ethnicities that we don't have here in great number. Do you know what I mean? So it depends on the location, it depends on so many things whether it would work. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And what about, so now you found your brilliant actor or a dancer or performer,
Uh-huh.
they're perfect for your film. You really want them and they're available when you need them to be available and they're
Yes.
excited. Everything is perfect. How do you make an offer? Is there a
Oh,
certain paperwork that is needed? Rahel
yeah.
is asking.
Yes. And always have now for Equity has great blueprints and templates of contracts for short films, for feature films, for all these things. So they're able to talk you through a contract. You're able to get a template and work from it. Maybe there's certain things you don't need in it, or there's certain things you do need in it. But once you have that contract, you make the offer. So what you need in that offer are the finances, if there is an agreement in place, as in you're working under pact equity or you're working under these certain guidelines. Now, you have to pay for these things, right? And as young filmmakers, you're trying to do a lot with very little, but you can say, we don't have an agreement in place, but we are using the pact equity guideline. Do you know what I mean? This is what we are aligning ourselves to. We don't have it, but this is what it is. Then you lay out the money, you lay out if there's going to be accommodation, you lay out everything, get it on the page so the actor can see it or the agent can see it. Once you have that, once they've agreed to that, that's your contract. That's it in writing. Now remember, consent is not linear. Right? So we can get people to sign contracts left, right, and center, but if it is something that maybe they feel close to the time that they do want, they do have the right to step back. So that's where the director maybe, or casting director or an IC. It's at that point where you then start to work with their accommodations. Okay, they can't do that. Okay, what is it that you need? Remember, always make sure that you, again, the best practice of it, always make sure you're finding out what their requirements are. You know what you have, but what do they need? And what do they want in order to do this, I suppose. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
And just to add that Carol has really helpfully put in the chat that Equity Now has a great new guide for making short film best practice.
Yes.
And it covers everything from equality templates,
Yeah.
contracts. Producer for me takes all of this on. So yes, check that out, guys. So moving
It's
on,
amazing.
you've got a contract. You're in pre-production. But you cannot bring in the actors in for a table read or rehearsals prior to shooting for whatever reason.
Mhm.
And you don't have time to, or you cannot physically spend time with individual actors to work on
Yeah.
their characters. What
Mhm.
can you do as a director?
Uh,
If that actor then approaches you and tells you that they cannot connect emotionally with their character?
So my advice would be always, always reach ahead of time, right? If they come on your set and they're unable to connect emotionally, you could spend a full morning trying to get this. That's your schedule out. Do you know what I mean? So this, you must make time. Even if it's a phone call the night before or a Zoom the night before. So what I would do is send out an email, making sure how everybody's feeling, have they any questions, right? So then that's maybe a week before. So you get in the lay of the land, you still have no time, you still have no time. There's maybe two of those actors have come back with questions. Give yourself an email chain of communication. It will be your friend when you're there at the end of the set, because then you're able to kind of reach back, because the emotional connection is their task. But what your task is to make sure that they're being heard and that you could maybe have the right questions. Maybe does that actor have any similarities to maybe the character they're playing? Have they ever heard of a story before? You know, say the emotional connection was losing a dog. Have you ever had a dog before? You're asked, you start to probe just the way that actor minds the text. There is a wonderful thing called hot seating. It's a great game that I would play in my play groups where an actor who has the role of a character will sit and I would, or the director would, just ask them fictional questions about themselves. Just it's really short, it's really quick, and it's a way of them bam, 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 imagining the character. So then when it comes to the day on set, they've all that structure. So then you're able to bring them out through reach. So again, it's questioning and pulling them out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And Sonia is asking, what about should you ever send your actors reading materials or videos? So, for example,
Yeah,
you wanna illustrate body language for a type of character.
why not? Now remember the artistry is theirs. Now you have cast an actor because you feel they're the people that can, they're the person that can perform this better than anybody else. They're absolutely amazing. You're confident in their performance. Now, if you have accent notes or it's maybe from a certain point of time, certain period of time, give resources, give tips. Just another thing that I always encourage, especially with our short films, you know, over here, if I have a director coming to me, get a lookbook ready, get a information pack ready. As in, these are the images that inform this story. These are this is the literature that informs this story. These are the TV shows that have informed this story. And I make sure we have it in a wee pack and we send that across via email. So those actors have that. That makes your job a lot easier. Yeah, especially when you've no rehearsals and especially when you don't have this time beforehand. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Gifting that. Yeah.
And then on that time, So an anonymous person is asking, how
Mm.
would you recommend working with actors that don't have much experience? So remember, our audience, they're just maybe making their first short film, or they're
Mhm.
still making short films. So actors maybe don't have a lot of experience and need to be guided a lot more on character development, on blocking, on all of that. But then our young directors don't have a middle person like yourself to help them with it. What do
Mhm.
you do then on set?
On set play. Do you know what I mean? Play. I would ask, well, I suppose one of the biggest things on a tight schedule like that, yeah, make sure they learn their lines, right? Make sure they know their lines off by heart before they come on, right? So once they're there, just prep while everybody else is sitting in front of you. Just go through and you just give them and change your note. Simple as. So I've two actors. They know their lines off by heart. They've never met before, but they have to do some really brilliant performances between one another. One's 19, one's 21, and it's their first TV show, right? You know they're going to be well prepped. You've already sent ahead the visuals, the lookbook, the resources, all that has been sent ahead. They know their lines, and I simply 10 goes, right, play the same, just say your lines. Second time, I want you to play this for hunger. Pretend you're hungry. Pretend you have the food. Play. That it has nothing maybe to do with the script, but just get them to play different things. Because what you find will happen is all of a sudden they're connecting through play, the two people, the two actors in that character. You give them their note, what's happening in the scene, but because they feel familiar, the nervous system's already engaged, they're able to create. So it's about you, I suppose, just like a casting director would do, and just the way I would as a coach, you're facilitating a space for those actors and always get them to play for 5 minutes. Just if I was in charge of the world, guys, or even the film industry, I would have a morning for play. Every morning, everyone would have to play for 30 minutes before anything got done. Because all of a sudden the focus is there, open, playful, and the magic happens in that point too. So just have them learn their lines. Make sure they're there enough. Sorry, I have a wee thing come up there. Have them learn their lines and play with them. Change intention really quickly, a couple of times, even 3 or 4 times in that scene. Just get them to say it, change intention, breathe, step, and play again. And you'll see that difference just by engaging them and just by creating a connection. They'll settle and they'll start to trust themselves. And that's what you got to do as a director. You have to go, here, experience or no experience, you're here, you're telling story with me, and let's give it a go.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant advice. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I'm
No
aware
worries.
that we've massively run over time, so I'm going to ask you
I
the
am
very
so
last question.
sorry.
No, 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 that's okay. And we've also had so many questions, and I'm heartbroken that I can't ask all of them to you. But we'll finish with a career one. Can you
Yeah.
tell us, how does one start off as a casting director? How did you start? Do you need to do a course? And then how do you grow your book of actors?
Mm, that's really interesting. Right. First of all, a casting director doesn't have a book of actors.
Interesting.
People don't like it's the idea of a casting agent that I think is like American maybe, but I'm a casting director. I don't have a book, but what I do is I use agents books. I do open calls. Because if you have a book of actors, then you're only using that pool. But for me, it's all about supporting the talent that's there, finding new talent and helping it grow. Yeah, it's creating growth in that. Now, for me as a casting director, I trained as an actor. Which is why I love them so dearly. I know how much goes into everything they do. I trained as an actor, and for me, it was about creating a safe space for our actors. So I worked as an actor for about 10 years, and then it was through starting a theatre company that I really started to love, and I realized I had a great shorthand with actors, and we were able to play it, and we were able to really develop. And I thought, oh my God, this is actually, this makes more sense to me. So, and again, it was facilitating that connection, that space between, means so much to me. So I then started to offer myself out to short film directors as casting director. And that was how I started. And I maybe did, and I was very lucky. Like one of my first was Oscar nominated and won a BAFTA. And it was really, really exciting. So, and again, I had nothing to do with any of those things, but it just happened to be a project that I was a part of.
Can you tell us what it's called so we can look it up?
So Boogaloo and Graham. It's a gorgeous wee Northern Irish short. But we did brilliant, and I've been very lucky. Then some of the shorts that I've worked on have been incredible. Again, of another couple of BAFTA winners. Um, because see that short film that you're all going to be working in over the next couple of years, the art and the dedication needed to tell a story within what, 12 minutes, 7 minutes, 27 minutes is insane. It's easier to tell it over 10 episodes. It's easier to tell it in a feature. But if you're able to distill that, that's golden. That's gorgeous. So it was through that. And then I then was attached to cast a feature that was going into development. And then I started working with another casting director here in Belfast. And she took me under her wing and spoilt me ruined for about 8.5 years, where I really got it was in practice. Now I've known many, because I'm now a member of the CDG over the last couple of years. And I've met so many casting directors, and not two of us have gone through the same journey. For me, mine was about safe spaces. My intention was about safe spaces and creating really exciting stories. So I just found my way, and now through experience and through meeting the right casting directors as well, like reaching to loads of other people in that field.
So yeah, networking,
Networking, reaching, but I put up my details at the start and at the end of this. We support, we're based here, but we're very lucky that we get to work throughout Europe, and afar, do you know what I mean? And in the UK. So always reach, people love helping, you know.
Thank you so much for watching this BFI Film Academy lab session on the art of directing actors. We run monthly live digital labs and would love to see you at our next event, which takes place on Monday, the 8th of July. This session will focus on creating the necessary package for funding applications for short films, and it will be delivered by Film Hub Midlands. To find out more about this session, visit our lab's webpage, which you can find in this video's YouTube description, and follow Film Academy on our social channels. Thank you and see you next time.